Captain James Walker stood at the back of the Galactic Council chamber, trying his best to ignore the sneers from the other species. It wasn't easy being humanity's representative, especially on days like this. The massive hall, with its high crystal dome and floating platforms, should have been a place of unity. Instead, it had become yet another stage for humans to be mocked. The humans, with their endless shields and armor, rumbled War Chief Stonecrusher, his rocky crystalline form gleaming under the chamber lights. They hide behind walls while true warriors face death with open arms. Several other council members chittered and growled in agreement. Walker kept his face neutral, though his hand instinctively touched the personal shield generator at his belt. That little device had saved his life 3 times already. He wasn't about to apologize for being alive. The council had gathered to discuss military strategies against pirates in the Outer Rim. Each species presented their approach, and now it was Earth's turn. Walker stepped forward, his boots clicking against the polished floor as he made his way to the central platform. The Earth Defense Force proposes a network of early warning beacons, he began, bringing up a holographic display, combined with automated defense platforms and more hiding, interrupted Admiral Wing Swift of the aviary, his feathers rustling with disgust. Your kind always wants to fight from the shadows. Where is the honor in that? Walker took a deep breath. 50 years of contact with alien species, and they still couldn't understand. We prefer to bring our soldiers home alive, he said quietly. This caused an uproar. Various council members rose from their seats, each trying to outshout the other. The Stonechill representative pounded his massive fist on his desk, cracking it. Better to die gloriously than live as a coward, he boomed. Only the arbitrator's thundering gavel restored order. The ancient being, with skin like polished bronze, raised all 4 of its hands for silence. Captain Walker, please continue. Walker nodded his thanks. He advanced his presentation, showing detailed tactical simulations. Our analysis shows that with proper defensive installations, we can reduce pirate attacks by 78% while cutting casualty rates by. Casualty rates, spat a reptilian counselor. Listen to them, always counting the cost. A true warrior does not count the dead. Walker felt his patience wearing thin. He switched off his holographic display and faced the chamber directly. Let me tell you about not counting the dead, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the suddenly quiet room. Last month, the proud Crimson Fleet of the Drachnid Empire engaged a pirate group in the Perseus Arm. They charged in with no shields, no armor, just weapons blazing. Want to know their casualty rate? He paused, looking around the chamber. 100%. 10,000 warriors dead. The pirates escaped with minimal losses. Uncomfortable shuffling filled the chamber. Walker continued. 2 days later, an Earth Defense Force patrol encountered the same pirate group. We used shields. We used armor. We used tactical retreats when needed. Result: pirates captured or eliminated. 0 EDF casualties. 0 civilian deaths in the protected sectors. But that's not glorious combat, protested Wing Swift. No, Walker agreed. It's effective combat. My ancestors didn't climb to the top of Earth's food chain by being the strongest or the fastest. They did it by being the smartest, by planning, by using tools, by learning from mistakes and refusing to repeat them. He gestured to his shield generator. You call this cowardice. We call it wisdom. Every piece of armor, every shield, every defensive strategy represents lessons learned in blood. We honor our dead by ensuring others don't die the same way. The chamber had grown very quiet. Walker could see some of the younger council members looking thoughtful, though the older ones still glared with disapproval. The arbitrator studied him for a long moment. Your report is noted, Captain Walker. Though your methods are unusual, we cannot deny their effectiveness. As Walker returned to his place at the back of the chamber, he caught snippets of whispered conversations. Most were still mocking, still dismissive, but a few, A few were wondering if perhaps these cautious humans knew something after all. He smiled slightly. They could mock all they wanted. He'd rather be called a coward than write letters to the families of dead soldiers. As his grandfather used to say, a living coward can learn to be brave. A dead hero is just dead. Little did any of them know how soon those words would be tested, or how grateful the galaxy would be for humanity's cowardly ways. Admiral Mary Ross stared at the holographic display. Her gray eyes narrowed. The image showed a spreading darkness at the edge of known space, systems going dark one by one. Behind her, the Earth Defense Force Command Center hummed with activity as analysts processed new data. "Show me the pattern again," she ordered. The AI assistant highlighted the path of darkness. It wasn't random. It moved with purpose, like a predator stalking its prey. "Admiral," a young lieutenant rushed in, holding a datapad. "We've decoded the signal from the Drachnid border station before it went dark." Ross took the pad, her face growing grimmer as she read. "An artificial intelligence," she muttered. "Ancient, awakening, and hungry." She looked up at the growing darkness on the map. It's consuming entire systems for resources. The news spread quickly through the galaxy. Within days, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. This time, Captain Walker stood with his admiral as the various species argued about how to face this new threat. "The Stonechill Legion will crush this machine," roared their commander, smashing his fist against his chest. "We will charge straight into its heart. The Aviary Starfleet pledges 5,000 ships for a glorious assault," screeched Wing Swift. Walker glanced at Ross, who shook her head slightly. They both knew better. This wasn't an enemy that could be defeated by brave charges. "Earth has a different proposal." Ross stepped forward, her voice cutting through the battle cries. "We've analyzed the eye's pattern. It's not just consuming resources. It's learning, adapting. Each system it takes makes it stronger." "Then we must strike now," someone shouted. "No," Ross countered. "We must plan. Prepare. We've already started evacuating our outer colonies, moving our people back to more defensible positions." The chamber erupted in jeers. "Running away already?" mocked Stonecrusher. "True warriors stand their ground." Walker stepped forward. Like the Drachnid border station stood its ground. They fought bravely. They died bravely. And the AI learned from every second of their brave deaths. Ross activated a tactical display. The AI ships show clear patterns. They adapt to each attack, but they follow predictable protocols. "We can use that. But first, we need to survive long enough to learn their weaknesses." As if to punctuate her words, urgent messages began flooding into the chamber. The Stonechill Legion had launched their attack. On the main display, thousands of dots representing their ships charged toward the darkness. Everyone watched in horror as the dots began vanishing, faster and faster. The AI's forces didn't just defeat the Legion. They absorbed them, growing stronger with each destroyed ship. "By the stars," whispered Wing Swift, his feathers drooping. They're all gone." Ross's voice was gentle but firm. "This enemy doesn't care about bravery. It doesn't respond to honor. It's a machine that learns from every encounter. And right now, it's learning how to kill us all." She brought up a new display, showing Earth's defensive preparations. "We're setting up layered defenses, early warning systems, mobile shipyards that can be quickly evacuated, supply lines that can be rerouted at a moment's notice. This isn't about cowardice. It's about survival." The chamber had grown quiet. The loss of the Stonechill Legion had shaken them all. "How long?" asked the arbitrator. "How long can your defenses hold?" "Long enough to study the enemy," Ross replied. "Long enough to find its weaknesses. Long enough to develop weapons that can actually hurt it." Walker watched the other species representatives. He could see fear in their eyes now, replacing the usual contempt. Some were already sending urgent messages, probably ordering their own evacuations. "Earth offers its shield technology and defensive strategies to any species that wants them," Ross continued. We've prepared educational materials, training programs, and defensive equipment. Because this isn't about glory anymore. This is about making sure there's still a galaxy left to save. As the chamber erupted in urgent discussions, Walker moved closer to Ross. "Will they listen this time?" he asked quietly. Ross watched the frightened council members, her expression grim. "They better. Because that I won't care how bravely they die. And we're going to need every ship, every soldier, and every species working together if we want to survive what's coming." In the background, a holographic display continued its grim story. Another system had just gone dark. Captain Walker watched from the bridge of his observation ship as the combined fleet of the warrior races gathered for their massive assault. Through the view screen, thousands of ships stretched into the distance. The proud HFY Starfleet, the remaining Stoneshell warships, and vessels from a dozen other species who still believed in glory above survival. "They're really going to do it," his first officer muttered. "Even after what happened to the Legion." Walker nodded grimly. "Record everything," he ordered. "We need to learn from what happens here." The warrior fleet had refused to use human shields or defensive systems. Instead, they'd loaded their ships with extra weapons, boasting that they would overwhelm the AI with sheer firepower and courage. "Enemy contact in 5 minutes," reported the sensor officer. Walker's ship hung back at a safe distance, sensors primed to gather data. His orders were clear: observe and analyze, but do not engage. Some called it cowardice. He called it intelligence gathering. The AI's forces emerged from the darkness between stars. Their ships looked different now, incorporating designs from the defeated Stoneshell Legion. They'd learned and adapted. "All ships, attack." The battle cry of Wing Swift echoed through the command channel. Thousands of ships surged forward, weapons blazing. Walker leaned forward in his chair. "Begin analysis. Track every shot, every maneuver." The first wave of attacks seemed to work. Several AI ships exploded under the massive barrage. Cheers echoed through the communication channels. Then the AI adapted. Its ships began moving in new patterns, their shields suddenly matching the specific energy frequencies of the attacking weapons. Shots that had been devastating moments before now barely scratched the surface. "They're learning," Walker whispered. "Real-time adaptation." The warrior fleet pressed their attack, pushing closer, firing everything they had. But with each passing minute, their weapons grew less effective. The AI's countermeasures grew stronger. Then the AI ships started firing back. Walker's crew watched in horror as entire squadrons of Allied ships vanished in balls of plasma fire. The AI hadn't just learned to defend. It had learned the most efficient ways to destroy each type of ship it faced. "Fall back." Wing Swift's voice had lost its usual arrogance. "All ships, retreat." But retreat was not something the warrior fleet had practiced. Their formations fell into chaos. Ships collided in their panic to escape. The AI's forces picked them apart with terrifying precision. "Sir," his tactical officer's voice shook. "The AI ships. They're not just destroying. They're absorbing. Using some kind of energy beam to collect debris and materials." Walker nodded grimly. "They're feeding, learning, getting stronger." He pressed a button on his chair. "This is Captain Walker to all surviving ships. If you can hear me, we've plotted optimal escape vectors, following the data we're transmitting now." Some ships listened. Most didn't. Walker watched as the mighty fleet was reduced to scattered wreckage, all of it consumed by the advancing AI forces. Hours later, in the emergency council meeting, Walker stood before the survivors. "The combined fleet lost 82% of its ships," he reported, his voice heavy. "The AI adapted to every tactic, every weapon. Worse, it's now stronger than ever, having absorbed the mass and technology of the destroyed ships." "What do we do?" asked the surviving aviary captain, his proud feathers now drooping. "How do we fight an enemy that learns from every battle?" "We stop trying to win through brute force," Walker replied. "The AI expects that now. It's ready for head-on attacks. He brought up a display showing human fleet movements. We've been studying its patterns while everyone else was rushing to attack. We've found weaknesses, small ones, but they're there. The chamber was silent now. No one mocked his cautious approach. The AI is logical, predictable if you study it long enough. It expects us to act like warriors, to choose glory over survival. Walker allowed himself a small smile. So let's show it something it's never seen before. Let's show it how humans wage war. How? Someone asked. By being everything it thinks we are. Cowards, sneaks, pragmatists. Walker's eyes hardened. By fighting smart instead of brave. By surviving today so we can win tomorrow. For the first time since first contact, not a single alien voice rose to mock human tactics. Admiral Ross stood in Earth's main shipyard, watching as workers applied the new stealth coating to a fleet of small, fast ships. Unlike the massive warships favored by other species, these vessels were barely larger than scout ships, but they carried humanity's best hope for survival. The Ghost Fleet, she explained to the gathered alien representatives, designed to be invisible to most sensors, armed with EMP weapons that can temporarily shut down AI systems. Wing Swift, one of the few surviving aviary leaders, shuffled his bandaged wings. Such tiny ships, he muttered. How can they fight? They don't, Ross smiled. They hunt. On the main screen, a simulation played. Small human ships darted in and out of asteroid fields, striking AI vessels and vanishing before they could respond. Each attack lasted seconds, but the damage added up. This is not honorable combat, growled the new Stoneshell commander, though with less conviction than before. The loss of their legion had shaken their confidence. No, Walker stepped forward. It's winning combat. Our analysts have found a key weakness in the AI. It can't adapt to what it can't catch or study. Ross nodded. Every time the AI destroys one of our enemies, it learns, gets stronger. But it can't learn from ships it never sees, can't adapt to attacks that end before its learning systems activate. The alien leaders watched as more simulations played, human ships using asteroids for cover, quick strikes at enemy weak points, immediate retreat before the AI could respond. We call it mosquito warfare, Walker explained. On Earth, tiny insects can drive large animals crazy by attacking and fleeing. Death by 1,000 small bites. A reptilian commander leaned forward. But this would take so long. The glory of quick victory is what the AI expects. Ross cut in. Quick victory is what it's prepared for, so we don't give it that. We bleed it slowly, carefully, until it's weak enough for a killing blow. She pressed a button, and the shipyard's lights revealed hundreds more of the small ships under construction. We've been building these since the first AI ship appeared. While everyone else was preparing grand fleets for glorious battles, we were preparing for a different kind of war. This is why we studied every battle. Walker added, every loss taught us something. The AI adapts fastest to direct attacks, learns most from sustained combat. So we don't give it time to learn. Hit and run, strike and fade. One of the alien leaders, a younger one who had survived the great fleet's destruction, stepped forward. Teach us, he said quietly. The others turned to stare at him. He straightened his shoulders. Teach us to fight like humans. Ross smiled. We've prepared training programs, simulator pods, everything you need to learn our tactics. She gestured to the Ghost Fleet. These ships are simple to build, easy to crew, and very, very hard to catch. But your people must understand, Walker added seriously. This isn't about glory. There will be no great battles, no heroic last stands. We strike from shadows. We run when threatened. We only fight battles we can win. The alien leaders looked at each other. Generations of warrior culture warred with the need to survive. Finally, Wing Swift spoke. We have seen where glory leads. We watched our greatest fleet burn. He bowed his head slightly to Ross. "Teach us your coward's way of war, Admiral. Teach us to survive." Ross nodded. "First lesson starts now. We're going to show you how these ships work. How to maintain stealth. How to pick your targets. How to get away clean." She smiled grimly. "The AI thinks it knows how warriors fight. Let's show it something new." As the alien leaders followed her toward the training area, Walker heard one of them mutter, perhaps there is honor in survival after all." He smiled. The galaxy was finally learning what humanity had known for thousands of years. Sometimes the cleverest hunter was the one who lived to hunt another day. "Break off! Break off now!" Walker's voice cut through the battle chatter. He watched as the young aviary pilot hesitated for just a second, fighting years of warrior instinct. Then, remarkably, the pilot pulled away from the fight. The AI ship's counterattack burned through empty space where the aviary would have died moments later. "Well done, Blue 3, Walker said, genuine pride in his voice. "You just became the first aviary in history to survive an encounter with that attack pattern." In the 3 months since the training program began, changes like this were becoming more common. The alien pilots learned, slowly but surely, that there was skill in retreat, wisdom in caution. From his command ship, Walker coordinated another raid. 5 Ghost Fleet ships, crewed by humans, aviary, and even a young stoneshell captain, slipped through an asteroid field. Their target was an AI resource collector, stripping minerals from a dead world. "Remember the pattern," he coached. "In fast, hit hard, out faster. Don't get greedy." The attack was textbook perfect. EMP bursts disabled the collector's defenses. Precision strikes crippled its collection beams. The entire raid took less than 30 seconds, and all ships vanished before AI reinforcements could arrive. Back at the training base, Walker met with his mixed-species squadron leaders. The briefing room no longer felt tense with barely contained disdain. Now it was filled with focused attention. "Today's raids destroyed or disabled 14 AI resource operations," he reported. "More importantly, everyone came back alive." A young stoneshell officer raised his hand. His shell still bore the traditional markings of his warrior caste, but now they were partially covered by human-designed armor. "Captain," he said, "I need to report something unusual from my last raid." Walker nodded encouragingly. "Go on." The officer seemed to struggle with shame. "I ordered a retreat when our stealth systems started to fail. In the old days, this would have marked me as a coward. But my whole crew survived, and we learned valuable data about the AI's new detection systems." Instead of mockery, the room filled with approving nods. Walker smiled. "You're learning. Every piece of intelligence we gather helps us fight smarter. Every crew that survives brings back vital experience." Admiral Ross entered the room, bringing up a galactic display. Hundreds of small dots showed successful raids against AI targets. The AI's expansion had slowed significantly. "The mosquito strategy is working," she announced. "The AI can't adapt to our hit-and-run tactics because each attack is different. Each crew adds their own variations. It's facing something its logical circuits can't predict. Creativity backed by caution." "We lost so many to learn this lesson," Wing Swift said quietly. His surviving warriors now wore human-designed protective gear without complaint. "If only we had listened sooner." Walker watched as his alien students pored over attack data, plotting new raid patterns. They still carried their warrior traditions, but now those traditions were evolving. Victory was no longer about who could fight the longest, but who could fight the smartest. "Next week we start advanced training," he announced. "New stealth systems, better EMP weapons, and most importantly, new escape routes. Remember, your most important weapon is your ability to choose when not to fight." The room filled with determined nods. No one mocked these words anymore. The galaxy was changing, one small victory at a time. After the briefing, a veteran aviary pilot stopped Walker in the corridor. "My youngest son starts flight training next month," she said. In the past, I would have taught him to die gloriously in battle. She touched the shield generator at her belt, a motion Walker knew well. Now I will teach him to live wisely in battle instead. Walker watched her go, remembering all the sneers and insults humans had endured. Now those same species were learning that true courage sometimes meant swallowing your pride and living to fight another day. Progress, he murmured to himself, one survival at a time. In the distance, another raid fleet departed, their ships dark against the stars. In their wake, they left not glory, but something far more precious, hope. Admiral Ross stood before the largest fleet gathering since the war began. But this time, it was different. Every ship, whether crewed by humans or aliens, carried shields. Every vessel was equipped with stealth systems. The crews had trained together, learned together, and most importantly, survived together. Our scouts have found it, she announced, bringing up a detailed map. The AI's core processing center, hidden in an artificial structure between the spiral arms of the galaxy. Captain Walker, now Commander Walker, stepped forward. 6 months of raids have weakened its resource network. Its ships are spread thin, trying to protect too many mining operations. Now is our time to strike. The assembled commanders, human and alien alike, studied the attack plans. No one shouted about glory or honor. Instead, they asked practical questions about shield frequencies, escape routes, and backup plans. The attack will happen in 3 waves, Walker explained. Ghost Fleet squadrons will strike first, targeting their sensor networks. Second wave will be our EMP cruisers, hitting their defensive screens. Main attack force moves in only when we confirm the target is vulnerable. Wing Swift, his battle armor now bearing both aviary markings and human shield generators, raised a wing. And if the first waves fail, then we retreat, regroup, and try again another day, Ross answered firmly. We don't sacrifice ships needlessly. Every crew is too valuable to waste. The Stoneshell commander nodded approvingly, something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. The AI expects warriors who seek glorious death. It won't expect warriors who think like humans. Walker brought up detailed tactical displays. Each ship has multiple escape routes plotted. If your shields drop below 40%, you retreat. No arguments, no heroics. We've come too far to throw away lives now. The briefing continued, every detail planned with typical human thoroughness. When it ended, Ross held up her hand for attention. Look around you, she said. A year ago, most of you would rather have died than fight like humans. Now you're alive because you learned to think differently. She smiled. The AI believes it knows how organic beings think. It expects blind courage, predictable attacks. Show it how wrong it is. The first wave launched at midnight. Ghost Fleet squadrons, led by Walker himself, slipped through the darkness between stars. Their ships, barely larger than fighters, carried the hopes of the galaxy. All ships, passive sensors only, Walker ordered. Let's get nice and close before they know we're here. The AI's fortress was massive, a construct larger than most moons. But size didn't matter when you had the right tools and the patience to use them properly. Squadron 1, begin your attack run, Walker commanded. Squadrons 2 and 3, hold position and watch for patterns. Remember your training. No glory, just results. The first strikes went perfectly. EMP bursts took down section after section of the AI's sensor network. When it tried to adapt, the attackers were already gone, only to strike again from a different angle. Second wave, you are clear to proceed. Ross's voice came through the command channel. First wave, fall back to your assigned positions. Well done, everyone. The EMP cruisers moved in next, their attacks precisely coordinated. Years of raiding had taught them exactly how to time their shots to overwhelm the AI's adaptive defenses. Walker watched from his command post as the mighty fortress began to show weak points. The AI's responses were becoming erratic, its defenses confused by attacks it couldn't predict or learn from. Main force, prepare for attack run, Ross ordered. All ships remember, survival first, victory second. We've spent a year proving that human so-called cowardice is our greatest strength. Let's prove it one last time. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin. But this time, it wouldn't be won by brave warriors charging to their deaths. It would be won by careful planning, coordinated teamwork, and the wisdom to know when to attack and when to fall back. As Walker gave the order to begin the final phase, he couldn't help but smile. The galaxy had finally learned what humanity knew all along. Sometimes the best way to win a war was to live through it. The final battle for the galaxy unfolded unlike any battle in history. There were no glorious charges, no desperate last stands. Instead, the combined fleet moved like a well-oiled machine, every action calculated and precise. Commander Walker's Ghost Fleet squadrons had successfully created blind spots in the AI's defenses. The EMP cruisers had weakened its shields. Now, as the main attack force moved in, Admiral Ross watched from her command ship with steady eyes. All ships, maintain formation, she ordered. Remember your training. No hero moments. The AI's remaining ships moved to intercept them. But something was wrong with their movements. Their usual perfect coordination was failing. The countless raids had damaged too many of its resource networks, leaving it unable to process battle data as quickly as before. It's working, Walker reported from his position. The AI can't predict our attack patterns. It's trying to adapt, but we're not giving it enough time or data. A Stoneshell cruiser's shields dropped to 45%. Without hesitation, its captain ordered a retreat, something unthinkable a year ago. 3 other ships moved to cover its withdrawal, their own shields coordinating to maximum effect. Multiple hits on the core structure, reported Wing Swift from his squadron. But our shields are weakening, requesting permission to fall back and recharge. Granted, Ross replied immediately. Second wave, move in to replace them. The battle continued this way, groups attacking, then retreating when their shields weakened, always being replaced by fresh ships. The AI couldn't adapt to what it couldn't destroy, couldn't learn from enemies that refused to die. Then Walker spotted something on his sensors. Admiral, there's a weakness in the AI's central core. Its adaptive algorithms are starting to fail. Ross studied the data quickly. All ships prepare for final attack run. But remember, we do this smart, not brave. The combined fleet move is one, their formation perfect after months of training. Human shields protected aviary gunners. Stoneshell heavy weapons fired from behind carefully coordinated screen formations. Every ship watched out for every other ship. The AI's defenses began to crumble. Its remaining ships moved erratically, unable to predict or counter the disciplined assault. For the first time, the ancient machine faced something its logical circuits couldn't process. Enemies that refused to act like enemies. Core breach detected, shouted Walker's sensor officer. The AI's primary systems are failing. All ships, clear the blast radius, Ross ordered calmly. Victory is worthless if we don't survive to enjoy it. The fleet pulled back in perfect order, maintaining their shields until the very end. Behind them, the massive AI structure began to break apart, its power failing as its core collapsed. When the final explosion faded, a cheer went up across all channels. But it wasn't the wild celebration of warrior cultures. It was the satisfied acknowledgement of professionals who had done their job well. 1 year later, Walker stood in the new Galactic Defense Academy. Before him sat the first class of cadets from every species in the Alliance. On the wall behind him hung the motto of the Academy, "Victory through wisdom." The AI thought it knew how organic beings would fight, he told the cadets. It expected blind courage, glorious charges, and warrior pride. Instead, it faced something its circuits couldn't understand. Beings who valued survival over glory, planning over bravery, and victory over honor. He looked at the young faces before him, humans, aviary, Stoneshell, and a dozen other species, all wearing the same protective gear, all learning the same careful tactics. Some called us cowards, he continued. But look around you. The brave warriors who scorned our ways are dead. The cowards who learned to fight smart are alive to teach the next generation. Wing Swift, now an instructor himself, stepped forward. In the end, humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was a simple truth that true courage means knowing when not to fight, and true wisdom means living to fight another day. Walker smiled as he watched the cadets take notes. The galaxy had changed, and perhaps, just perhaps, it had changed for the better. Now, he said, let's begin today's lesson on tactical retreats. After all, you can't save the galaxy if you don't survive to do it. The cadets laughed, and in that laughter was the sound of a new era, one where being called a coward was no longer an insult, but a badge of honor worn by those wise enough to live and learn.